Canaris had previously been undecided about whether murdering the tyrant was an answer, unlike his helpers.
We were
absolutely convinced that what we were doing would be Germany's salvation, and that it was necessary to save Germany, and that the guilt of removing a man who was leader, that this guilt must be borne.
Canaris was worn down by doubt. He deteriorated physically as well. In April 1943, investigators from the Gestapo and the armed forces searched the Abwehr offices. In their sights, Oster and Dohnányi, the co-conspirators. Canaris could no longer protect them.
Hier hat Canaris versagt.
Canaris failed in this. He should simply have said, "Listen, you're not coming in. Please wait in the next room." Then he could have contacted Keitel and could perhaps have appealed to Himmler or Hitler.
He didn't have the strength for that. Himmler soon took over the Secret Service. His terror apparatus was now complete. Canaris was dismissed, without protest.
He realized he was on the way out. I don't think he was so sorry to leave his job, as it was becoming too sinister.
It was sinister for the man out in the cold when reality caught up with his gloomy premonitions. Far away, at Lauenstein Castle in eastern Bavaria, Canaris was under house arrest. An admiral kept in minimum security, nothing could be proved against him. But then a telegram arrived, his discharge from the Navy, a bad sign. He became even more depressed. He wrote to his housekeeper, "I'm really longing for home."
Wir geben Nachrichten des drahtlosen Dienstes.
July the 20th, 1944.
Der Führer unverletzt.
Back at home in Berlin, Canaris heard of Count Stauffenberg's assassination attempt. Although no longer involved, he was still caught up in the vortex of revenge. Canaris was arrested by the SS and interrogated. Trying to save his skin, he denied everything. During interrogation in the Gestapo cellars, he said, "I never doubted that any change in the government during the war would be viewed as a stab in the back." Whilst above him, Berlin was collapsing into rubble, Canaris was hoping for the war to end. But then the prisoners were moved.
Then there was the big attack on Berlin in February 1945, and all the men were moved away. We weren't given any address. We later received a postcard from them which said something trivial like, "It's nice and green here." But there was no address to write to.
The new address was Flossenbürg concentration camp.
He said he had been horribly tortured. They'd smashed his nose to pieces. As I've already told you, that was the usual method of interrogation, bashing people right in the face. Apparently they did that to him, too.
Then, in March 1945, deep in the bunker of the Army High Command, a chance find. Two soldiers opened a steel cupboard and found Canaris's diaries. When Hitler read them, he immediately ordered the executions of Canaris, Oster and Dohnányi. The admiral was hanged on the 9th of April in Flossenbürg, murdered on the orders of the man whose adversary and henchman he was. How guilty did that make Canaris?
It was perhaps the most difficult question for everyone who worked for the resistance in the war. You had to hide it. You weren't allowed to be recognizable. So you had to be part of that war machinery somewhere.
The Americans reached the camp in mid-April. They released the few remaining prisoners. Had they arrived 4 days earlier, Canaris would have survived too. How would the victors have treated him? As an enemy of Hitler? A former subordinate won't hear of it.
Don't forget that many operations that Canaris ordered resulted in people being led to their deaths. He couldn't send people to their doom to prove how effective his Abwehr still was, yet also be opposed to Hitler. What good is it if a great man opposes Hitler if 2,000 others still have to die anyway?
Wilhelm Canaris, a German soldier who believed to the end that he was serving his country. When he realized that his warlord was a criminal, his resistance began. But he never dared take the final step.
Hamlet, he felt that he had a duty to reverse this, to avenge this. But he couldn't make up his mind, to put it bluntly. He remained indecisive to the end and got the worst of all worlds in the end. And in that sense, I think Canaris could be described as the Hamlet of conservative Germany.